President Trump has really tried, David, I think, to strengthen NATO, to make countries pay their fair share, but to support us more in that way. How do you think his efforts have been received?
Well, I think that parts of his efforts have not been received well, but I think the parts that matter, what Secretary Rubio was speaking to, there isn't any choice about this. The NATO countries have to be better parts of NATO if this thing is going to last. I thought his speech had moral clarity. I thought it spoke to the undergirdings of Western civ in the right way. He had the right tone and tenor, in my opinion, but also there was strong clarity behind the message. And I think what Kevin said is important. The issue with China is not geographical or ethnic. It is purely about values. We believe in freedom. They are a communist country. That's the moral clarity. I think that we have to, though, be very careful that if we're opposed to them being anti-market, we need to maintain our pro-market stance. Mm-hmm. We cannot become anti-market in defense of some fighting an adversary that we don't think is adequately for markets. That's the issue to me. We need to hold fast to what we believe in America.
But, Kevin, it does feel like they don't want to because of those ideological differences. And so I wonder, even with a president like President Trump, when the thinking is so different, how do you bridge that gap?
You're either with us or you're against us. That's the message, and that's coming loud and clear from the White House, obviously, and that's got to be reconciled somehow. Regarding technology, it's rather interesting because some of the most advanced innovations in AI came from Germany and France, and yet they're not commercialized. You would think the new leadership, the younger leadership in Italy and Germany and France and Switzerland would say, this isn't working, we got to fix it. Because it's not like they don't have the talent. I hire their talent. I steal their talent. All I have to say to them is, you want to stay home in your European country, or you want to make a ton of dough?
They don't have capital markets. They don't believe in innovating in capital markets. People can sit here and bemoan Wall Street all they want. They have talent. They have technology. They can't monetize it, commercialize it, because they have had no ability to put it out into financial situations for decades. That's the issue why they have no mega cap companies that are successful. It is literally that they hate this idea of finance leading to profits, leading to growth, and so they use regulation as a tool to control their economy.
Also litigation, because they take every large company and sue them for billions, because they don't have any tax revenue from Meta and they don't have it from Google. They just keep suing them.
Is what I'm worried about. You're fighting the allies who have these ideological differences. They have a completely different business model than we do. You're fighting people like Hillary Clinton and AOC here at home. And so I just wonder, and real quick, if you just want to put a button on it, I just wonder how we can move forward and really take China on seriously when there is so much fighting going on.
Well, from my vantage point, the easiest way to have unity is to stand behind the principles you believe in. So I'm a Reaganite through and through. I stand against communism. I stand for markets. There's plenty in the right that still stand for those things, and we can do this together. And Kevin's right. The enemy with China is who we should be focused on. And I think that Europe needs to get in line. And by the way, Europe doesn't need to do it to make us feel better. Europe needs to do it for their own self-preservation.
Exactly.
So we know we can't tap the grid anymore. We know the mayor of the town, the library, the hospital, the people that live there will not tolerate a 30% increase in the rates. So we have to bring our own power. The only way to do that was stranded nat gas. But there's something else I want to point out that is becoming very political. Let's say I build 1.4 gigs of power, and I want to give back to the grid, because to help finance, if I can get an offtake agreement, I could raise some debt on it. Mm-hmm. I run into something called FERC. Now, in our industry, the joke goes like this. I wanted to build a gig of power, but I got FERC'd.
It's Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Because they don't let you attach to the grid anywhere without the feds getting involved. So what the administration has promised all of us that are doing this is, instead of waiting 7 years for a permit, this is what Trump said over in Davos, let's do it in 7 months. And then it boils down to, where can I get a state that has the land, has the water, can get me past the permit, and I'll bring the $2 billion. We can solve this problem, but we can't get FERC'd again. We got to get unFERC'd. And that's the problem.
I think that the FERC issue is the part that federal government has legitimate jurisdiction over. What they don't have jurisdiction over is the state and local. And so trying to get the feds to bypass the 10th Amendment to say that we're just going to tell states and local municipalities what they have to approve, I don't agree with that, but I don't think it's necessary. I think that some of the states will compete for the business. We can get the permitting done quicker and not have FERC be an issue at the federal level. But I was very confused by Pete Navarro's comments, and you saw some of Meta's response. They are paying for this. this. I mean, that's
Right.
sort of the point investors are dealing with is we think as investors the expenses are going too high. They're covering that. They don't want the political backlash, but it's also a sunk cost. I think that the whole issue here is that there are a lot of different cooks in the kitchen of what it's going to take to get that power, and the White House is trying to find the right messaging to say that they support it. There's no question the president supports it. But I think Navarro trying to make an enemy out of what the scalers are doing, to me, was a little confusing.
It doesn't matter where you land on the income ladder, you're not immune to financial stress. The average client walking through the doors of a credit counseling agency now earns about $70,000 a year. That's middle class, and they're carrying nearly half their salary worth of unsecured debt. Now, the only way out of an affordability crisis, we've talked about this, growth. People need to make more money, and the good news, the country trending in the right direction. But David, I think my question for you first is, do you believe the statistics? Because we've always had a K-shaped economy. Whether you like it or not, in this country, people always do better, and some people just do worse. But the best thing about capitalism is it's the best way to climb up that socioeconomic ladder, and you have a fighting chance at moving up. So do you believe this, and is it something we should be worried about?
Well, I mean, as far as the question as to whether or not people have the ability to change their station in life in our country, there's no question about it that people have that ability. Not everyone does, but we have the opportunity to aspire for a better life and go try to earn it. Look, the issue, though, is for people, we're talking about $70,000 of income right out of college. They've got a degree. They're intelligent. They're employable. And yet they have that level of debt. That's, to me, a more mixed issue. What my own belief is that housing costs are so high that it used to be for 25 to 35% of someone's paycheck. Now it's covering 40 to 50%. Then they're putting the other 10 to 15% of entertainment, leisure, recreational spending on the credit card, and it's racking up. So you have to deal with housing cost in order to get the rest of disposable spending under control. But along the way, I'm a supply sider. I want to see incomes grow, and incomes grow from more productivity. And we don't have enough focus on those incentives. When politicians start talking about things they're going to do to manipulate prices, I've never seen them do it. You control it by pushing wages higher. You get wages higher with a more competitive, growth-oriented economy.
Dagan, you and I have agreed on every single thing on this hour today, and it has been a pleasure. This is corporate welfare, cronyism, picking winners and losers, and I want to know, since when AI was the only thing that displaced? What about workers that were displaced by something else? There are evolutions and innovations and changes that happen, and for the government to say we're going to pick your sector, and by the way, it's the big tech sector that has the most equity, capital, and free cash flow floating around in history, they're the sector that's going to benefit and get government money to offset the impact. Typewriter salesmen did not get government credits when PC computers came along. And I could go back to horse and buggy, and we could do this all day. There is creative destruction happens in the economy. We need retraining. Companies have incentives to do it. We need workers to be dynamic. We need less regulation and tax burden broadly in the economy. What we don't need is the government picking winners and losers.